Hi,
Hey,
how are
let's.
you?
I'm good. How are you so far?
I'm great. Ready to answer some questions.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a decent amount. Let's see. It's like about 67 people are watching so far.
Awesome.
Let's see. North Carolina, Missouri, Ohio, Tennessee.
Angie's from Gettysburg.
That's my mother.
Oh, okay. Hey, Angie.
I just saw Wisconsin. Oh, wow. Okay. So we got a decent amount all over the place.
Awesome. Great.
So before we get into the questions, I know there's some stuff you wanted to talk about. Do you want to just go ahead and do some
Yeah,
housekeeping?
yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple questions that we've been receiving on social media over the last couple weeks, and just a couple things I wanted to put out there before we get started. We do not have an official opening date yet for our new location. We we've had a couple hiccups along the way. And I think a project this size just it's not going to go 100% as planned. Like the sinks were incorrect, so we got the correct sinks in a couple of days ago. Just little things here and there. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks we will have an official opening date. We do not own our current location where we are right now. I get a lot of questions about that. So when we move, because we lease our current location, that location will close, goes back to the former owner of the funeral home, and we move to our new location. So that will be the only location that we have. And then the other question that I get a lot of is, are we dropping the Berg name? And the answer is no, we are not. So, yeah.
So are we gonna no estimates on when things might come to fruition, or not estimates, but wishful thinking?
I gave someone a date yesterday, but I'm not going to put it out there.
Okay, okay.
So our lease is up May 1st. And we are not renewing our lease for another year. I do get questions too about having a crematory on site. We will not have a crematory on site. We are still primarily in an area that prefers traditional burial, but we are still, we see cremation here and there, and we're seeing more and more cremation as time goes on. But the demographic that we serve, they still prefer traditional burial. So no crematory. And not only that, but the zoning doesn't allow for it. So
Oh
could
wow.
we ask for a variance? Or I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. A variance. That's the word I want to use, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Uh, we could ask for a variance, but we would end up spending a ton of money in legal fees, and it's not worth it.
And
We like our neighbors. We don't want to upset anyone, and financially, it just doesn't make sense for us to do that.
yeah, because I know in like coming from Maryland, when it comes to crematories, if you want to put a new one in and you're not grandfathered, you have to
Yeah.
like have public hearings and take public comment and a
Mhm.
ton of stuff. So, and we have a
Yeah.
good relationship with the crematory that we use now.
Yes. Yeah. And Harkins. So for those of you who may be new with us, my husband and I bought Wagner-Elfner and Berg May 16th of 2023. And then we purchased Harkins, I believe it was August 28th of 25. So we've only owned it for 6 months. So Chris runs that location for us down at Wagner-Elfner and Harkins, and we both use the same crematory over in Lancaster County. And they're great. They're wonderful people.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
So, right. Anything else, or should we get into the nitty gritty?
Get into the nitty-gritty.
All right. All right. So, anybody that's been following along for what the last maybe 4 weeks through this, we've been asking for folks to submit questions and comments. And of course, Catherine got the overwhelming response, and I got a few that trickled in here and there.
Well, you're going to help me out. You're going to chime in because you might have a different opinion.
So, let's see. Here's the first one from Susie Q. In your personal experience, or what have you heard through the grapevine? How often does this happen? How often do people actually switch funeral homes? That sounds a little unsettling to me, but it would be difficult to stick with a place you feel uncomfortable with?
In my personal experience at our funeral home, I've had maybe 5 people switch over to us from other funeral homes. I actually had 2 people do that within the last 2 weeks. Some people are wanting to switch over to us when we officially move from our current location to our new location, but they want to get in and they want to see the open house and, feel things out before they make that official switch. But
Now you're talking about the pre-need.
pre-need, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about at need?
At need. I actually had someone come on our Facebook the other day and they named a local funeral home and they said, I always thought that they were the best, but I think you guys are now. And that's where I want to go when my time comes. And I thought, well, wow, that's a compliment, because the funeral home that they were referencing it's a well-known funeral home in the area. Good people, they operate differently. We all have our own little unique ways of doing things and our own touches. But yeah, so I think opening our new location is going to be a game changer for us. We are right now, we only have so much to work with. And yeah, I mean, Chris knows he stops up at our location like every other day and we are crammed in there like sardines.
Yeah. And I mean, not to mention with you guys having the refrigeration, I don't have the refrigeration, so any of my calls that need refrigeration are coming to you guys.
Yes.
So again, I said, for my Christmas list last year was, bigger, cooler. And, like you said, it's in the works.
Oh, it's there. And it could be up and running right now. We just got to get through the rest of this building and get through inspection. And then we have to have the state inspector come. We can't just have the township come and open. And I think, maybe for the general public, they're not aware of that. We can't just open up once we pass inspection. We have to have the town or the state board come and inspect as well.
So it's a whole process that I don't think people understand, that there's so much more behind the scenes versus just, turning on the lights and saying, hey, here we are.
Right. If I could do that right now, I would, though, because I'm burnout from the current location. We're just, we only have so much space to work with. And I'm, in the prep room the other day, and really our prep room can only hold maybe, I say only because we have a huge prep room compared to you. Sorry, Chris.
Right.
Prep room down at Harkins is like comfortably. I mean, maybe we can fit 6 dressing tables in our prep room. And it was crammed the other day. And I just keep thinking, I cannot wait until we can get into the new location. And it'll just be a place that we're really proud of.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just walking through, what was it, on Halloween, and to walk through the other day is just amazing.
Yeah, you just want to use the bathtub.
That, and I just want to just chill and hang out on a leopard print carpet.
Right.
Well, I told you.
I have my heating blanket here with me tonight.
I told you, all I want to do is legit just put me a little, TV tray and a little folding chair in the file room, and I'll have an office. It's fine.
Well, that'll be your office.
Let's see. All right. So another question here, talking about pre-need. So if funeral homes go bankrupt, what happens there? Because I really want to pre-plan now. I've already purchased burial spots at a cemetery. Thanks.
Are you asking me? You want me to answer that?
I can go ahead. So when you prepay, and again, one thing I want to explain is that Katharine and I, with the way we're going to answer questions tonight, are based off of us being licensed in Pennsylvania, and then me also being licensed in Pennsylvania and Maryland. So every state has different laws governing whether it be pre-need funds, whether it be at-need requirements, things like that. But majority of states require that the money has to be held in trust. So you come in, you prearrange with Katharine, you prearrange with me at Harkins. The money does not go into our bank accounts. The money goes into a trust with a trust company. And most funeral homes choose to use a life insurance product to hold those funds for tax liabilities to the consumer. If we were to take the money and say open up a single account for an individual just at a local bank, like a PNC or an M&T or something like that, every year you're going to get a 1099 on that. And that is not fair to you as the consumer to have to pay a tax liability for you wanting to prepay your funeral. So by us being able to put it into an insurance product, there's no tax liability. So if the funeral home, which it's not, were to ever close, those funds are held with a third party company that could give those funds to whatever funeral home you would be choosing to use at that time. Now, that doesn't mean the price is going to stay the same because the other funeral home is going to charge you their current prices. So there's a couple little caveats to that.
Well, and I want to touch on a comment that you got a couple weeks ago from someone, and they said, I don't know the exact wording, but how dare we encourage someone younger to prearrange?
Yes.
We're greedy. We don't see any of that money until someone passes, and I think that that's a misconception. People think that that money comes directly to us. No, it does not. That does not. We don't see that money until someone passes. So you could prearrange with us today and live another 30 years, and chances are in 30 years we're taking a loss.
Yep.
And we end up writing that off at the end of the year because costs will go up over 30 years.
Even sometimes within a year.
Yeah.
We're taking a loss.
Yeah.
And it's not something that what a lot of people don't realize is you pre-plan today and the casket costs, just $900.
Mm-hmm.
But say within 2 months or 3 months, we get a new price list from the manufacturer. And because of whatever's going on locally, materials and stuff, that casket's through the roof now. We still have to honor that originally contracted price.
Mm-hmm.
So again, and like I said, I think I even said it in that video. If funeral homes were trying to be greedy, we would not encourage people to pre-plan.
Right.
Let's see. Actually, where was it? In the comment here, I think this is pretty cool. Let's see. From Audrey. What advice do you have for someone who's trying very hard to get their foot in the door in the industry? I started mortuary school and sadly couldn't find a practicum anywhere within a reasonable drive. I'm now being forced to take time away from school since my funding source and the school had a disagreement about what was owed. Now I'm trying to work hard to pay the school so I can finish my degree. What advice do you have as I'm looking for a part-time job as an attendant?
I feel what you're going through because I went through the same thing. I called multiple funeral homes and no one would take me in. Unfortunately, I think, and I don't want to say maybe unfortunately, maybe that's not the right word, but a lot of funeral homes are family owned and they only want family there. They're very close knit. Our work is also very, it's all over the place. We don't know what our schedules are going to be like. I've had people approach me about shadowing, and my answer to them is, I can't give you a schedule. I don't know what my schedule is going to be like 15 minutes from now. My phone could go off right now, and I could, potentially have to hop off this live. Well, we have Chad and Addie, so they'll hop in. But our schedules they're just unpredictable. So if you're looking for consistency with a funeral home, maybe that's why you're not able to get your foot in the door. One thing that I would recommend is offer to do anything. Mm-hmm. Clean toilets, go out on transfers, work services, learn everything. But if you're looking for specific hours and you're communicating that with them, maybe that's why they're not open to bringing you on. Because as an owner, I can tell you if someone came to me and said, I need, 20 hours a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say, I don't know that I can accommodate that. And really too, and Chris, you can chime in. When someone comes to us, I'm looking for someone who's willing to do anything.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. If you and Nate are willing to scrub the toilets,
yeah,
I expect everyone to be willing to scrub the toilets. You know what I mean?
I've had people come in and tell me I can only work 8 to 5 and I will not go out at 3 a.m. Well, death doesn't just happen between 8 and 5. And we do go out at 3 a.m. Even as an owner, I'll go out at 3 a.m. if I have to go out.
Yeah, I mean, and
So,
we know those eventful nights with you and Dakota.
yeah. Yeah. We had one a couple weeks ago. That was Dakota and I always get into the most interesting situations together. I don't know. Maybe he's on this watching. Dakota, if you're in here, give us a thumbs up. But yeah, that was interesting.
Let's see. There was one. Okay. And I guess this is going to be more for the owner here. Do families have to pay upfront, or do you take insurance policy as payment?
We do require payment prior to services taking place, and that could include using an insurance policy.
But that we just would verify, one, that the policy is in
Yep.
force and we have a valid assignment
Yep.
of whatever the funeral contract would be toward that policy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go. Do Amish and Mennonites embalm? It's freaking the Deutsch. So yes,
That's all you.
that's all me. So for those that don't know, Delta has a very, very large Amish community, old order Amish community. And I think probably since December, I've been trying to make friends and lead way into the community there. And it's finally happened. And it's been so fun. So I'm actually on the journey of trying to learn Pennsylvania Dutch, which that's going to be a blast. But to answer your question, yes, Amish and Mennonite both do embalm. Both have very different services, but both do embalm. Here you go, Katharine.
Okay, fraudulent money. So I had talked about this in a video a couple weeks ago, and I don't know how I came about it on the video, but Nate and I, last weekend, we went to Nemacolin. I always called it Nemacolin, but it's in Farmington, Pennsylvania, and apparently it's pronounced Nemacolin. And they have yeah, I stand corrected.
I'm not going to say I'm not saying the L word.
They had, or they have a casino. And so, when we go on our cruises or whatever, Nate and I like to go to the casino, and I usually spend more than my budget. But we were at Nemacolin. It was probably about a year ago. And prior to us leaving, we had a traditional burial service. Family brought cash in to pay. And that's not unusual that we have families that will bring large sums of cash in. And so I said to Nate before we left, hey, because we don't have time to go to the bank, tap into that cash stash. We'll replenish it when we get back, but grab some money and we'll go to the casino. So, we went out to dinner, we had some drinks, like we're doing our thing, go to the casino. And I said, can I have some money? Because Nate's the money guy. I don't carry cash on me. Yeah. So I said, can I have some money? So he hands me $100 bill. I stick it in the slot machine, and the slot machine jams. So, of course, we put our hands up and press all the buttons. We call security over, and they opened up the machine. They pull out the $100 bill, and they gave me a fresh 100. Well, of course, I put it in, and I lost it. And about a week later, we were sitting at the church where we were having the service, and Nate gets a call from state police, and they're like, "Is this Mr. Elfner?" And Nate goes, "Yeah, what's going on?" And he goes, were you in Farmington, Pennsylvania last weekend with your accomplice? And I'm like, what's going on? So apparently this was a fake $100 bill. We did not know it, but they sent us a picture of it. They took a photocopy, and it's very clear that it is a fake $100 bill, but we didn't look at it. We just assumed that it was legit cash. And they said the only reason we're not going to do anything is because had you known it was fake money, you would have ran out. You wouldn't have called security over. So that's our little joke. That was a fraudulent money story. And after that weekend, we bought one of those pens on Amazon where you can mark the bills. But I honestly, I don't think the family knew, and maybe that's just me being naive, but we work with amazing families in our community, and I can't imagine that anyone would pay
Some
for a large service like that with fake money. It was they didn't know, we didn't know. We didn't get in trouble though.
Where did you buy your cooler and which company?
I
guess
saw that question pop up.
you're gonna have to tap in Nate.
Hold on a second. Hold on. This is how lazy I am some days.
Yeah.
Hey, where did we get our cooler from? What's the name of the company?
I don't know. Someone asked me that the other day, that gentleman that called in, and I don't remember. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not a mortuary cooler. It's just a typical restaurant type or fridge or cooler, walk-in cooler. I honestly don't remember.
Okay, I'll look it up in the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we didn't even order it. Stuart and Tate ordered it. So.
Okay. All right, you're on live, so keep it appropriate. All right, I love you.
Love you.
Bye. I'll do that. Sometimes I'm laying in bed and I'll call him when he's downstairs. And I'm like, can you bring me some water?
Well, I'm going to star that so we remember we can at least go.
Yes. I have a picture of it in my phone. It was American Arctic, American Arctic. I don't know. But again, like Nate said, it's not a mortuary cooler. It's like a restaurant cooler.
Oh, this one. Have you ever received a body out of state and weren't satisfied with their presentation and had to enhance someone's look? I've had it happen. I've had ship-ins, not recently, but at my previous firm, we've had ship-ins from a down south state. And
Florida.
your words, not mine.
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, the decedent was shipped into us from Florida, and we literally had to replace the interior of the casket and things like that because things were very bad.
Yeah. You know, I think people are afraid to use dye sometimes when it comes to their embalming solution. And it makes the biggest difference in the world. And we get a lot of questions about that on our social media. People want to know, why do you have different colored chemicals? It's not necessarily that they're different colored chemicals. Some of them just have more dye than others.
So Zachary said JAGC. Yep, John A. Gupton College. That is where I went to mortuary college at Nashville, Tennessee. All right. So I actually prefer both companies. I like Dodge. Their chemicals I like with Dodge. And Katharine will tell you, I love Frigid fluids. I use Frigid. When I used to trade and bomb with Katharine or for Katharine and Nate and help them out, I would prefer to use Frigid chemicals. And Katharine, do you have a certain chemical that you like the most or prefer?
I love Frigid. I do. And Chris and we were talking earlier today. I think sometimes we get maybe a little bit of speculation that we promote products for benefit. And I had used Frigid for 6 months before I started coming out online because I need to stand behind a product before I'm going to say, hey, this is what I love. This is what I use. But Frigid, I have great results with Frigid. Now, like Chad and Addie at our funeral home, they like Dodge. Mm-hmm. And whatever they want to use is fine. But I like my Frigid and I love my pink embalming machine.
So are you going to do a poll and figure out what the new name's going to be?
I have a pretty good idea. Someone dropped a name last night and I thought, wow, that's great. I love it.
It's a pink Cadillac.
I can't tell you. Just like I can't tell you when we're opening up the new funeral home. Hey, give me 1 second. Talk to them. I need to step out here for a minute. Tell them how we met. Because I think, people would love to hear that story. I'll be right back.
Okay. So actually, when I was in mortuary school, I was in mortuary school at the same time Katharine was. Katharine was attending PIMS. I was attending John A. Gupton College. And it was actually through a Facebook group that she commented on something, and then I commented on her comment, and then, just started commenting back and forth and just talking online about our profession. And it was actually, as you I think you were still serving your apprenticeship or your internship at Berg
Yeah.
at the time. And I was doing my apprenticeship down in Maryland because I lived in Maryland. I didn't move to PA until 2020. And then we just stayed in touch, commented, became friends and acquaintances on Facebook. And then I believe it was even before you and Nate purchased Berg, you guys were traveling, and there was a case that needed to be prepped.
Mhm.
And you had reached out to me, and I went over, and the previous owner was actually there working a service, and I did the prep.
Yes, that's
things like that.
right. Well,
And
you prepped for her.
yeah, because it was a ship out back to Maryland. So that's how Facebook,
Yeah.
it was probably Embalmers Who Care. It was probably that group.
Exactly. Yep.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's how Katharine and I met, and we stayed friends and talked. And then it only took me about 2 years to actually come on board.
Well, I think we had hoped that maybe you would come to the new
Sure.
location.
Yeah,
And then back in, when
September.
was it? What was the month that I was going crazy running back and forth between the two locations? And I told Nate, I was like, call Chris. We need to hire him because I'm going crazy.
It was September. It's actually when
Yeah.
we were handling the officers.
Yes. That's
It-
right. Because we
That
were,
on top of everything.
yeah. And I think, that week was a highly emotional week.
Mhm.
We had the three officers in our care, and you saw the big funeral that we had at the church.
Yep.
But what a lot of people don't know is we also had private funerals for all three of them.
Mhm.
The night before, I was out in Spring Grove. They were from the Spring Grove area, so I was out the night before. The day of the big funeral, we were in at 4 a.m. washing cars, and that week I almost like get emotional thinking about it because our community just came together in ways I can't even put into words. We have an awesome community. We have a great community. But on top of that large service and the three smaller services, we were also serving other families. And we had just purchased Harkins. So Nathan and we were in the garage one day, and I said to him, we hear about burnout in funeral service, and I've reached that point, and we got to call Chris, and Chris jumped right on board, and it's been the best thing in the world. He's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great relationship. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And it's for you guys to pretty much say, "Hey, we bought a funeral home. Here's the keys. Run it and take care of it for us." That just I can't explain to you guys how much that means to me because that takes a lot of trust.
Well, you're amazing at what you do, and I think the family see it, and I think the staff down there sees it, and we just hopefully this is a very long-term relationship.
Absolutely. All right, so this one, and I'm going to try and sometimes a family member has been cremated, and for whatever reason, their will or lack of one comes into play. Sometimes the court system ends up saying who gets the cremated remains, and then you end up with them until the decision is made. So I don't know if they're asking about if there's no will and maybe there's no legal next of kin. How is the determination made on who gets the cremated remains?
I mean, I've personally never had anything come up like that. It's just usually the next of kin that takes the cremated remains.
Yeah. I mean, a will sometimes. Now, I've seen wills. Now, for a lot of people who don't know my background, I came from a very high volume, direct cremation type of business. And this does happen. The will normally only comes into play if there is no legal next of kin and the executor is stepping forward as the executor to authorize the cremation. And at that point, the cremated remains would be given back to the executor. If there's no will and there's no next of kin, as long as there's legally no next of kin, because we've seen that before, whoever would be our contracted party would be who the cremated remains would be returned to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess piggybacking off that, this was a comment under that one stating that if there's money owed to the funeral home for services, I think they don't need to turn them over until the bill has been paid. Katharine, can you answer that question for sure?
So say the bill hasn't been paid and we move forward with cremation. Family signed all the authorizations and the proper documentation and paperwork. We move forward with cremation. If they call me the following week and they say, has mom been cremated? I can't lie to them because the date is going to be on the cremation certificate, and I can't withhold cremated remains. I can't hold cremated remains hostage. I can't hold a body hostage until I get payment. You can't do that. It's considered kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to release the cremated remains, whether you're paid or not. And that's why a lot of funeral homes will not move forward with cremation until they're paid in full.
And then, I mean, that then again, and that comes back even for us here in PA, we have, luckily we have refrigeration, but we also have by law the requirements to have expedited things taken care of within 10 days. Disposition, correct? Or else we got to follow for an extension.
Yeah.
This one just jumped out.
Yeah. That's the one I wanted to touch on.
So I buried my husband in 1989 and my son in 2022. In the emotional state one is in at that time, why are we not allowed to touch our loved ones?
You want to go first?
So let's see. Barbara, if you're still here and you're still in the chat, I just want a little bit of clarification of what were you not allowed to touch your loved one during the viewing or the visitation? I just would like just a little bit more clarification in the question she's asking, because and again, we've just gone down this road. I personally believe that we as human beings, part of acceptance, because I do not like the word closure, because I don't ever really believe you receive closure. You gain acceptance and you start to change your way of life. But I believe that as human beings, our senses, seeing, feeling, touching, those are all big parts of the grief process, in my opinion.
We encourage that. And if there's any reason why you shouldn't touch someone, such as maybe restorative art, wax, more makeup than usual. I've really, we had a situation a couple months ago where we had to do a lot of restorative work on someone. And I said, they're delicate. A lot of TLC went into getting them ready for their viewing. And my recommendation is that you just maybe touch their hand at the end of the viewing period before we close the casket. If you want to give them a kiss on the cheek, and that's where maybe some of the restorative work was done, you can absolutely do that. But we try to guide families, because the last thing we want them to do is to go up to the casket and start touching, and then maybe something gets messed up that took hours to do. We want to guide them, and I think being transparent is really important, but also being compassionate and just delicate in the way that you explain things to families makes a big difference.
And Barbara, I'm very sorry that that's something that happened. And the problem is with these types of situations is and this is what I tell everybody, anybody that works with me on a service or something, we don't get a second chance to go back and try to make something better or fix a mistake. That's why literally when we do what we do, it has to be a zero fail mission. We give everyone 150% so that if for some reason we fall short, we've still given them 100% or more. So Barbara, I'm really sorry about that. And again, not knowing the situation, but even if there was extremely heavy cosmetics or something like that, that again, it's like Katharine said, something you can go back and touch up, whether it be for in the middle of the visitation or waiting for the break in between. So again, I'm just terribly sorry. All right. So before I get angry about that, let's see.
Hey, one popped up, and Chris, we actually spoke about this on the phone earlier, and this is from Kathy, and I think I'm positive Kathy is from York. She says, I've heard you state that you will sit with the family till they, there you go.
So to they agree on arrangements, how do you assure all of the next of kin, children of a parent are there? Do you have a way to look up who the family members are? Do you want to go?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, when we get a first call, if it's say a parent that has passed and the other parent is already deceased, and I'm being told by the next of kin, the child on the phone, that we're moving forward with cremation, one of the first questions I'm going to ask is, how many children are there? And are you all able to come in for arrangements? If you're not able to come in for arrangements, we can email forms. We can, oh my gosh, we'll get the forms to you, but it is important for us to ask those questions. But we're also, Chris, I don't know if I'm wrong in saying this, we're trusting you to be truthful with us. And at some point, something's going to come out if you're not. We've
done this long enough.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. There is this way I ask questions, and there's a reason why I ask the questions the way I do, because it takes people off guard and they will end up divulging information in that phone call. And it's not that we're trying to be deceptive or anything like that, but again, we have the legal responsibility of trying to make sure that we are dealing with the legal next of kin or the authorizing agent who can actually arrange for the method of disposition.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, what people don't realize about this is not only is the funeral home liable to be sued, but the individual who authorized, whether it be the burial or the cremation, is also liable too. Mm-hmm. Everybody's getting named in the lawsuit, and it's ridiculous that we have to do it, but it's happened because people don't want to deal with their long lost, sister who they haven't talked to because they had a falling out at Thanksgiving 7 years ago.
Right.
And we have to be the mediator.
Well, and if you get an obituary posted and you don't have all the family members listed, you're going to have a family member calling saying, why wasn't I in there? And then you end up uncovering stuff. And I had someone lie to me one time. Well, they didn't lie. I don't know how it all went down, but we brought someone into our care, and the children were listed as my contact. And they didn't, when I asked, how did this happen? When I asked if the spouse, or when I asked if their parent was married, I was told, no, mom died years ago. Well, they never told me that mom or that dad had remarried. And I guess just because they didn't like the stepmom, they didn't want the stepmom listed on the death certificate. But that's the spouse. Spouse has to be listed. So whether you like someone or not, doesn't really matter.
Exactly. And again, that's where people don't realize, as funeral directors, the different hats that we have to wear. Where we're counselors, we're referees, a little bit of everything. Let's see. So what else do we have here? What is the process if you have a decedent that is unclaimed or the family is non-responsive to completing the process? Do you want to go on with this one?
So one thing comes to mind. You got that call 2 weeks ago, right down the road from us.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, So I think we do our due diligence.
Mhm.
You run with that one.
You get a phone call, you find things out, and if I personally, depending on the situation, if and again, every situation is different, and that is where the experience and the expertise of handling different calls comes into play. But if someone passes away and they are at a hospital, and I will wait to meet with the family, have them come in the next day, go over everything, get signed releases, authorizations, and then bring them into my care. Um, as we discussed a little while ago, our expectation is, payment is made at the time of arrangements, or we know how the contract's going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Um, if you run into a situation that if you go to a house though, and you have a verbal agreement with the next of kin, and they're going to come in tomorrow to meet with you to make arrangements, and then you've already gone and taken that person and brought them into our care and custody, we don't have a recourse. We can't just say, okay, you haven't come back, and now we're going to bring your loved one back to your residence and leave them there. We are in care and custody of the remains until we can get relief, whether it be from the coroner or whether it be from the court system, to move forward with disposition.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we can call and call and call, and we've done it before, to trying to get people in the door to do paperwork and try to figure out something to accommodate them so that we can move forward and put get their loved one to rest. But it's a nightmare sometimes, and I don't understand it when they're the ones that initiated by calling us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Hey, Catherine, I know there is more detail that goes into the preparation of a body other than the embalming process. I remember reading once that there is some sort of instrument used to go in through the navel that is like a vacuum. Is there? And if so, what is it vacuuming / removing exactly? I was always skeptical whether I wanted to be embalmed or not, because just the thought of this being done to my body horrifies me, which is another reason I would not choose. Which is another reason I would not choose cremation. I know I'm not alive to know any better, but still the thought scares me. So if you aren't embalmed, could you still have a normal viewing before a funeral if it is all within 24 hours of being deceased?
Yeah, we've actually done quite a few private family viewings lately before cremation, and the individual's not embalmed. And then the device, the instrument, tool, whatever you want to call it, that would be the trocar, and that's how we remove fluid from the abdomen and just contents from the organs, so that we are able to cavity embalm.
Now, when you say the private family viewing, was that within the 24-hour period and then them going to the crematory, or was it because you were able to keep the remains in refrigeration? You didn't
Refrigeration.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
That segues into a perfect question that I think is going to ruffle some feathers, but I think it's my turn to get to ruffle some feathers this week.
Yeah, you do that because
So this was a message that was actually sent to me in a private message, and and I've actually taken a little bit of the message out because it links the video that the person was asking about. But they say, "Hey, Chris, can you and or Katharine touch on this? I feel like the statement on embalming is wrong, or at least misleading. I even Googled it, and the FTC says that a funeral home can require embalming for a public viewing. I know that when my mom passed, one option presented was a brief viewing with only immediate family, and we would not be able to touch here we go again, not being able to touch the body, and it would be in what was called a viewer." So I guess we have to give a little context to the actual video that they're talking about. So in the video, there is a licensed funeral director that states that a funeral home cannot legally require you to have your loved one embalmed for a public viewing. And remind me if I'm wrong, Catherine, he said it's a federal law. So again, funeral homes can require embalming if you choose a public viewing or visitation. And where this gentleman comes in and says that it is a federal law, he's referring to the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission. Okay. The Federal Trade Commission has what they call the FTC funeral rule. And this was instituted back in the 80s and has never been updated since. And it says in here that, and this actually isn't under GPL because it has to be in there verbatim. And it says in the top section, except in certain special cases, embalming is not required by law. Embalming may be necessary, however, if you select certain funeral arrangements, such as a funeral with a viewing. If you do not want embalming, you usually have the right to choose an arrangement that does not require you to pay for it. And it even goes on to say that phrase, except in certain special cases, it has to be right under or right beside the cost of embalming on your general price list. So, and funeral homes can, when you choose public viewing, require that your loved one be embalmed. And to take it a step further, and it's probably a little difficult for you to see, this is the standard of practice and conduct taken directly from the Pennsylvania Code. And it explains that human remains held 24 hours beyond death shall be embalmed or sealed in a container that will not allow for fumes or odors to escape or kept under refrigeration, if this does not conflict with a religious belief or medical examination. So, and from a PA standpoint, if you don't have refrigeration and the loved one is in our care and you have not been able to come into the funeral home because you've chosen, I'm not coming into the funeral home until next Monday because of whatever reason, the funeral home would have to embalm that decedent, and the funeral home has the right to charge for the embalming of that decedent. And then again, me being licensed in Maryland, the Maryland article explains that unembalmed bodies stored for more than 48 hours. So you have 48 hours, and either the decedent has to be embalmed or you must remain in refrigeration until the authorizations have been met. So again, guys, now again, this person is licensed in a different state, but again, to take advice and say that this is for everyone and funeral homes are taking advantage of people for this, it's just wrong. And that video, it's not right. So
and I think this is the stuff that we see online that frustrates us.
Yep.
Because then we get questioned by families when they come in. Well, we saw so-and-so on Facebook and they said that you can't require embalming. Well, guess what? If we have a public viewing and mom's not embalmed and the state inspector shows up, guess who has to shut their doors and who's facing serious fines? The funeral home.
Exactly. Does the federal or state government govern? Every state is governed independently by that state. Every state now, even Colorado now, has licensing requirements, and I think they even have put together their own state board of morticians.
I want to touch on a comment here. Susan wants to know if we really go in through the belly button when we aspirate with the trocar. No, we go 2 inches above the belly button, and I usually go 2 inches over to the right. and we pierce and we go in and we do our thing.
Yep.
It's really not as bad as people think.
No. I remember somebody asking me that if we, when we perform the embalming procedure, if we cut the jugular vein and then hang someone upside down. And this is why we do what we do. This is why we try to educate people. And, it's just trying to combat all the misinformation.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how you are, but like if I'm watching a movie and I see something
yes
in the movie, Nate knows it. I'll sit there and I'm like, here we go. There's going to be something that they show that is total nonsense. And this is why people believe what they believe. But embalming, we're not cutting your chest open. We're not cutting off your limbs to fit you in a crematory or into the retort at the crematory. We got that question a couple weeks ago. Embalming, there are so many times where I'm embalming. I make my incision here, do my embalming, water's running. I get the person off the table and I just take a little bit of soap and water and my disinfectant and clean off the table. There's no blood. I think people expect to see, blood splatter everywhere and organs here and, someone's lung in the sink. I don't know. It's not as bad as what you've been led to believe.
Why would the FDA? I think you're when I referred to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and that is about consumer protection. Like I said, it goes back to the FTC, the funeral rule that this was a question in school, and it was probably on the state board or national board, but I believe it was in the early 80s when the funeral rule was put into place by the Federal Trade Commission to require funeral homes have certain mandated items listed, itemized, and explained to the consumer. So it's not the FDA, but the FTC. But they do not govern funeral homes. They hold funeral homes accountable, would be the best way to explain that. And then going back to Susan's question about the trocar, she said, the tummy's fine, but don't touch my button.
Don't worry, Susan. We won't touch your belly button.
All right, let's see. Next question here. We have... Hey, Catherine, I have a question. Maybe it could even make it into the video, but no pressure if not. My question is, if someone passes away, let's say tomorrow, and their viewing isn't until the end of the month, do they stay in the cooler the whole time? And my second question is, once the new funeral home is finished, are you going to keep the same name?
We're keeping the same name. And I've been asked the question before, too, about a delay in disposition. So say someone passed earlier this morning, we got them embalmed, family has family all over the country, and we need to wait 3 weeks for the viewing. Obviously, I'm going to need to get permission from the state board to keep them in my care after 10 days. I'll need to file an extension, but there's a good possibility they don't need to go back into the refrigerator or go into the refrigerator at all. Once someone's been embalmed, they can just stay in the prep room. And that's usually what they do. We cover them with a sheet. We check on them every day, make sure they're not dehydrating and that they're good in there. But no one typically needs to go back in refrigeration or in refrigeration at all after they're embalmed.
So this is a good one. What makes a coroner's case with an autopsy different from a regular embalming?
Oh, gosh.
I mean, and again, I'm trying to keep things to where it's not too graphic, but an autopsy, and this is what I explain to families when I'm making arrangements, an autopsy is a very invasive procedure. And it is going to require more in-depth embalming and more time. So a regular embalming, there is no trauma to the abdominal or thoracic cavity or even the head and the skull and the brain. For an autopsy is not just as you see on TV with the Y incision and in the thoracic and abdominal cavity, but also a cranial autopsy is performed where literally the top portion of your skull is opened and your brain is examined. So we then have to go back and we take our skill and we take our time and we repair that. And when you see on TV, and this goes back to Katharine talking about how sometimes you'll see on TV shows where a decedent comes into a funeral home from the coroner's office and they're closed up and they're sutured and things like that. That's not normally how someone comes into our care.
No.
We would then have to go in. We treat the viscera, which is the abdominal organs that are normally placed into a bag. We have to treat those separately, and then we have to embalm. Well, you have to find the vessels because those vessels have been severed.
And that's why we have to open up. That someone comes to us with a Y incision. Yep. There's just a couple different stitches holding the skin together. We cut those sutures and we open up the cavity because we can't just inject like we normally would. We need to find any viable vessel, and it can be challenging.
And that's where, again, a lot of people don't realize the schooling that we go through. We take extensive anatomy courses.
Mm-hmm.
And anatomy is both for restorative arts. So I hated muscles, all the different types of muscles and things like that. And, trying to find anything. And sometimes you're not able to find something. So now you're going to have to go in and raise another vessel and make another incision so that you can properly inject and preserve the extremities. Face and hands are crucial because that's what 99.9% is what you're going to see.
Yeah.
But that was a very good question. Let's see.
Jamie wants to know, does it sometimes feel frustrating or exhausting when people feel this is all so taboo? Death is part of the human experience. I'm grateful for your transparency and care. So Jamie lives in Florida, and I reached out to her because we keep in touch. We're like best friends. Okay. And we're heading down to Florida at some point in the next couple of weeks. And Jamie and I are going to meet up. We're going to grab dinner.
Nice.
But, yeah, sometimes I guess I don't want to say it's exhausting. It's not exhausting. It's frustrating sometimes when, and I don't know, maybe I'm getting off track here, but like I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought, Chris.
So does feel frustration or exhaustion when people feel this is all so taboo? I will say this, that there's something that a lot of people refer to as death positive. And I had a director call me, a very good friend of mine out of Texas. And, he said, after watching my mom, physically and actively pass away at hospice in the home, he's like, that phrase is so just like abhorrent to me. There's nothing positive about death. And I see his point and I see a lot of people's point, but the fact, I think now with a lot of, mainstream media, I remember one of the biggest series that really made funeral homes and things like that talk of the town. Remember the show on 6 Feet Under?
Best show ever.
Yeah. And I mean, that is probably the most realistic. If you really want to see things that would happen in a prep room, that is probably the most realistic and similar to real life without the added on drama. So I would say that. But, it's not as bad. It used to be a death. Nobody even would want to talk to the funeral director. Now there will be times where if we go out, me and Michelle, and we're away or something like that, and if people ask, what I do for a living, I'm a used car salesman for a little while. Because if I tell them I'm a mortician, it's like that's all we talk about. There's nothing more. And I love talking about what we do.
Yeah.
So people are curious. People want to know. People don't want to face reality. People don't want to come in and sit down and have to talk to us. But by doing things this way, bringing people into our homes and us coming into their homes while they're sitting at their houses on a Thursday night, who would ever thought 130 people would be sitting around wanting to talk to 2 funeral directors on a Thursday night? So it's showing that people want to know what we're doing. It's validated. It was such a great show.
I didn't like the ending though. I felt
I
like the
thought it
ending
was
was just so chaotic. Like, what's going on? Yeah, it was bizarre.
40 years, and he's also the county coroner for 24 years.
Awesome.
So let's see. Questions. We did delayed.
Wait, go back to that comment.
The gentleman?
Okay. No, we had someone reach out to us last night from Kentucky who is one of the coroners. I forget which county. They had asked us about our refrigeration unit. Let me look this up. While you're...
All right, while you're looking that up, let's see. What else do we have here? We have... How do you handle piercings and tattoos with loved ones? And do you lotion them up so they look good for viewings? How do you handle people who have perms when doing their hair? So the hair question, that's outside of my scope. I call the hairdresser, or I call Katharine, and I call
You call Addie. You called Addie a couple days ago when you needed help with hair.
I was like, hey, I got a 9-year-old daughter, and I don't even know how to braid her hair. Okay. Tattoos, because when I explain to folks and I'm talking to them in regards to a first call, I explain when they're coming in to meet with me, bring me clothing, and I prefer something with a high neckline and long sleeves. So if they have tattoos, unless they're on their hands, the tattoos are normally going to be covered. And piercings, as far as, earrings and things like that, I have family bringing in earrings. I place them in people's ears all the time. Piercings on any other part of the body is whatever the family asks. And as long as it's legal and ethical, we accommodate.
I'm looking for this picture, but did I hear you correctly? If someone has tattoos on their hands, you cover those tattoos up?
No. What I was saying is that if
Oh,
somebody has tattoos, when I explain to families, when bring clothing, high neckline,
Right.
long sleeves.
Yeah.
So normally the tattoos are covered up.
Yes.
The only
Okay.
time tattoos wouldn't be covered up is if they were visible on their hands and things like that. And to be honest with you, when I embalm, and we talked about it earlier, dye is an embalmer's best friend, because if I can get that solution just right, I shouldn't have to use any cosmetics.
Yeah.
Unless it's a female, maybe. Well, even a male, I'm still going to do something on the lips. Something very mild, something very warm, and just maybe a little bit of rose or rouge, rather, on like the hot spots, the forehead, the nose, and the cheeks. But if you're going to have to cosmetize the hand, and that's something I learned very early on, if you cosmetize only one part of the hand, you're going to have to do the whole hand, because then it's going to look blotchy. So if I don't have to cosmetize your hands, even better. Were you able to find the picture?
I was not. I'll get Nate to come down here with the pictures on his phone. He'll have them.
There you go, Katharine.
Never. Right hand up to God. I've never dropped anyone. We always get weights on individuals before we go out on a call. Mm-hmm. And usually that comes through our answering service. So they'll let us know approximately how much the individual weighs. And we always send 2 people out to a house call. Yep. Now, I did have a situation about 1.5 years ago where we got the weight, and I said, we're going to need anyone we can get. So I called the local fire department, and it took 7 individuals to get the person out of the home. But we want to staff appropriately on any call. We want to prevent injury to us as well as the person. We don't want anything happening to them. Their family has called us. They are trusting us to care for them. We need to care for them. Now, Dakota went on a call it was probably about 1.5 years ago, and we were told the person weighed 240 pounds. So Dakota and someone else went out to the residence, and the person was more like 340 pounds, and Dakota ended up injuring himself. So we've learned that on a house call, anyone over 200 pounds, we're sending 3 people, because there's a good possibility that weight might not be accurate.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing. Once you get into a situation and once you're started, you're committed.
Yeah.
So, there's been times I remember before I was licensed, and it was me and a young lady. I was just on call. I was like Dakota at this funeral home, and we went out on the call, and we got there, and it's just like, I looked at her, I said, "Are you going to be able to do this?" Because even I was second guessing, because it was one of the ones where you use the reeve stretcher, and literally I'm sitting at the head on the stairs, and I'm just sliding down the stairs because
Mhm.
there's no way to physically carry the person.
Yes.
I'm just like, you just got to be able, just promise me you can brace, and I'll hold all the weight up top, and as we
Yep.
come down to get to the cot.
Yep.
And those are situations you always assess the situation when you go in, and you're going into someone's home. A lot of people think the first call is the first impression of a funeral home. The transfer, in my opinion, because people are inviting you into their home, and at that point they are giving you permission to take the most important person into your care. That's when reality, I think, sets in.
I'd break my back before I would ever drop anyone. That's probably why I had back issues. Hey, Chris, Ronald had commented.
I got that start here.
Okay.
Wow, we got like the same mindset here. Katharine, can you also touch, as another listener has asked about embalming cancer loved ones with chemo ports in their jugular vein? My oncology surgeon said that there is a few spots an implanted port can go through. Mine is stage 4. Oh, I'm sorry, Ronald. Pancreatic cancer, required to go through the right jugular vein due to harsh chemo my cancer requires. Thanks for your loving comments.
Do you want to touch on that one, Chris? I mean, I can just say that anyone I've ever embalmed with a chemo port, I've never had any issues.
No, because here's the thing. You guys got to understand, when we are, as embalmers, when we make, I will always, 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 first and foremost, try and inject the common carotid artery and drain from the jugular vein, just for the fact that it's the closest to the heart. So if you already have a port that's there, 99.9% of the time, that's a good sign for me, because that port is delivering that chemo into your body without obstruction.
Yeah.
So if I can remove that port and then make a bigger incision so that I can also drain from the jugular, I'm going to be able to get my cannula in, and I don't see any reason why there's going to be any issues there, in my opinion. Similar results for you, Katharine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never had any issues. Barbara wants to know if the person's arms are presentable, can you have short sleeve shirt or blouse? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've had them. Same thing with Jessica. I've had people bring in literally tank tops sometimes, and now, again, knowing if 99.9% of the times, if we have verbal permission to embalm, your loved one is probably going to be embalmed before you come to the funeral home for arrangements. Because I know I can speak for myself, and I know for Katharine as well. If we have verbal permission to embalm, we try to embalm as soon as that person gets back to our funeral home, because the quicker we can perform the embalming procedure, normally the better the results.
Yeah.
So again, like I just said, I normally always try to embalm at the carotid artery. So my incision, I normally go at the clavicle and make my incision there. So if somebody brings in something that's really low cut and I've already embalmed the person, I will let the family know sometimes we might have to take a piece of fabric from the back of the garment or something like that and just make it look like a camisole or something along those lines. But yeah, if your arms are in good shape and everything's good, absolutely. Let's see. What else do we have here?
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Are you going to answer that one?
I think this is one for you, but I can go ahead.
Come back to that one. Give me 1 second.
All right. Let me scroll down here and see if I can find another one that was sent to me. Okay. If you plan and prepay for, let's say, just a cremation and you end up moving to another state, how does that work? So again, like we talked about at the beginning of the video here, or the beginning of the live, that trust can be transferred to another funeral home in whatever state you would move to, but the pricing is not going to be guaranteed. So say you move here to Pennsylvania and you want, it's Max, buddy.
Hi.
Hi.
Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Can you say hi to everyone? Say hi, everyone.
Hi.
This is Max. Nate's on daddy duty, so he just got a bath.
Aw. Nate or Max?
What?
Nate or Max?
Nate's on daddy duty.
But did Nate or Max just get a bath?
Oh, who got a bath? Did you? Yeah. Are you shy? So
This is what they were asking about, prepaying for, let's just say, cremation and moving to another state. And like I was explaining, just like we talked about earlier, the trust is fully transferable. Prime example is if somebody was living in Maryland and then moved here to Red Lion, and they had a pre-arrangement in Maryland but wanted us to honor it here in Red Lion, we would take the contract and we would become the assigned funeral home and we would perform services. But say, just for round numbers, say our price for cremation is $4,000, their price was $2,000. The difference would still be owed to us as the receiving funeral home because we're not physically holding that money in trust. So we can't guarantee and honor someone else's prices. So I hope that makes sense.
we get a lot of questions from people from out of state, like far, far away, asking if they can pre-arrange with us. I mean, absolutely, you could do that, but it's not going to make sense to do that.
Oh man,
If you need help,
blowing up in the chat.
What?
Max is blowing up in the chat.
Susan says, Max, you have so many fans. Debbie says hi. Debbie actually works with Chris down at Harkins. You're a little stinker. So yeah, I mean, you could pre-arrange with us, but it's not going to make sense to do that. Just pre-arrange in the state that you're in. Now, if you're in Maryland and you're close to Harkins or you're close to the PA line, yeah, absolutely, we can help you out. But it's nice to get those questions from people because it means that they trust us and that they want to establish more of a relationship with us. But we'll help guide you. I've referred people to other funeral homes in other states. My big thing is read Google reviews and talk to people about their experiences with funeral homes.
Yep.
You want to go see Daddy? All right, we're getting antsy. Okay.
Bye, bud.
I'll come play then. We play basketball every night.
I know he's.
And we're going to see the Harlem Globetrotters tomorrow night.
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll be over in a little bit, okay? I'll come over.
What person would you embalm using the femoral artery? Also, what is your least favorite part of embalming?
You can use the femoral. I don't like to inject the femoral unless I absolutely need to. My least favorite part of embalming is definitely the cavity embalming and aspirating. I don't know.
I would say the only reason I use, again, I will go and I will always try to raise the carotid. But I tell you what, and any embalmer or any other mortician, or any embalmer or mortician that's in this live right now, when you go, you raise that artery and you feel it, and it just feels like a glass test tube, and your heart just sinks because it's not even worth the try. And then you go through the femoral. But that's really, the only time. Or if I know it is going to be clothing that requires that I embalm through the femoral. And the least favorite part of embalming for me is I don't have a dishwasher like certain other funeral homes will to clean their instruments. So I have to clean all my instruments after the fact.
I was thinking of that yesterday. I was cleaning up, or no, was it yesterday or day before? What's today? Today's Thursday. It was Tuesday. I was embalming and I was cleaning the instruments, and I thought, man, I can't wait till we have that dishwasher and I can put the head blocks in there and everything. I'm sorry. I don't mean to rub it in, Chris.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. So, can I prearrange with my life insurance policy? How does that work? So, you can come in, you can make selections, we can do an estimate, and then if you choose, we can do an irrevocable assignment of your life insurance policy. However, we do not enter into a contract because we are not holding those funds. So no pricing is guaranteed. Okay. Just because when you prearrange with us and we write the policy and we hold the trust with our trust company, the interest that gains on those funds over the time it's in trust goes to offset any shortfall that the funeral home will incur at the time of need. So your insurance company, let's say it's through Liberty Mutual or Mutual of Omaha, they are holding the money and that interest is benefiting them. So you're only going to receive whatever the death benefit is of that policy, no interest on it. All the interest is going to them, or the dividends are paid out to you quarterly, depending on how the policy is written. So it can be very confusing, and it's a lot for someone to take in. You can make arrangements, but they won't be guaranteed because it's not fair to the funeral home. But if you have any other questions about that, you can always call me at the funeral home. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Can we zip down through a couple? I see Bobby.
Bobby.
Max is still in here with me. Can you tell?
Bobby Burns.
Yeah. Harkins was a very appealing location for us because they're about 35 minutes south of where we are in Red Lion. Harkins is located in Delta, and there's no funeral home between Harkins and our funeral home. And so we see an opportunity to, of course, continue educating and getting out to maybe the individuals that live on that long stretch of road and earning their trust and being able to work with them and their families when they're in need of funeral services. And Harkins is the only funeral home down in Delta within, I mean, what's your closest funeral home, Chris? 20 miles?
Harford County, probably about 21 miles for me.
Yeah. It's a cute little funeral home. We loved it.
You know what? Again, it has been a breath of fresh air from where I was. I will say that Delta is a very close-knit community, and you have to earn the trust of the folks in that community. I'm trying daily to do that and to serve them the best way that I can. But do you have a vision to own more locations?
Yes, definitely. That was never our goal was never to just own one location. We want multiple funeral homes. If I could do this forever and ever and ever and just live forever, I would do it. I wish I would have done this earlier in life. I love it.
You know, hold on, before we get into this one. The crazy part about this is that it is often a second career for much older people. Have you ever noticed that?
Hold on a second. Nate, come here. Oh, he has to let the dogs out. Yeah.
You know, and I see so many people, and again, the funeral industry has changed so much. I remember when it used to be all men. There were no women in the industry. And, I will never forget a story that my mortuary law professor, Todd Van Beck, was my professor at mortuary school. And phenomenal man, such a great person. and I learned so much and looked up to him so much. Just a great guy. And he tells a story about one time that he takes a young lady that is a student that is trying to get her internship and to meet with a funeral director. And the funeral director, first moves out of his mouth when this lady walks in, he looks at her, looks her up and down, and goes, "Can you lift?" And I mean, she's a little tiny young lady, and Todd looks at the man and says, "Hell, so-and-so, you're in a wheelchair. What do you mean, can you lift?" But that was the mentality it used to be. Now we see it. Women are dominating and running and taking over the funeral industry.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because it's a different perspective. So I think it's so awesome.
Yeah, the majority of the students in my class at PIMS were probably mid-50s. It was a second career for a lot of people. And that's a question that we get often on Facebook is, is it too late for me? Well, you're only as, what is it? You're only as old as you feel.
Yeah. And you know what the cool part about it is now, Katharine, did you go hybrid or were you 100% online?
No, I did everything online. I went out to PIMS for my restorative art lab and for embalmings. I was only out there twice.
Same thing for me, which a lot of people don't understand this, is now for mortuary school, like my program was in Nashville, Tennessee. Katharine was in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And we did everything 100% online. You take your online classes, lectures, you do all your work, everything. And then I only had to go to Nashville. Again, Maryland had some stupid laws, but I had to go to Nashville twice. I had to go down once for my embalming labs because I had to have the embalming lab done before I could apply for my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Because Maryland doesn't have a student intern license like VA does.
Sure.
And then I had to go down again for my restorative art lab, and we called it comprehensive review prior to being released for the national board exam.
Mm-hmm.
So there's opportunity there. If people are interested in the field, that, please take a look at programs. I suggest that you go on the International Conference's website, look at schools, look at their pass rate for the MBE and things like that, and make a well-informed decision. So Crystal says, "I'm sorry if this has already been asked, but do you feel you get desensitized to death? I know death is a part of life, but I dropped out of mortuary science school when I was pregnant because I felt I would not be good at it anymore. I'm sure it was a lot of hormones talking, but I just felt I couldn't embalm a child being a new mom. Now that my kids are older, I feel like I missed my calling."
I don't feel that we are desensitized. There are times where we have individuals that come into our care and I get emotional. And I think the day that you don't show emotion is the day you need to walk away from funeral service. We get used to being around it. This is normal for us. This is what we do day in and day out, but by no means are we desensitized to death.
I will say prior to Skylar being born, I would handle and do a majority of, like, if it was a child or somebody that came into our care. But, I will say this, after Skylar was born, it does get you emotionally in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I would come home, even now, young people or something like that. I come home and I don't care what time it is. I'll go in and I'll give her a hug. You just want to hold her a little bit closer that night or something like that. And one thing I will say about our profession, I think we appreciate life differently.
Yes.
Because we see how fragile and how short it can be.
Yeah. And there's nothing worse than having, I say nothing worse. That's not the right wording I want to use. It is so challenging as a parent caring for a child.
Yeah.
So challenging.
Did you? Yeah. All right. So Debbie, from our Debbie, said, "My brother died by suicide by drinking antifreeze, and wasn't found for a couple days. I was told that no one will be allowed to view him. Is that normally the case?
I've never heard of that.
Well, again, so Debbie, here's the question I have. When you said he wasn't found for a couple of days, can you elaborate on what was it? The middle of July? Was there no air conditioning? I don't think that the fact that he passed by drinking antifreeze had anything to do in regards to not being able to see him or view him. I'd be curious to know the specifics of the situation, because you go to a house that has no air conditioning in the middle of July, and for some reason a heat source was turned on and someone wasn't found for 2 or 3 days. Decomposition can rapidly occur, and again, embalming only does so much. So
Yeah. Let me take him out to Nate because he needs to go to BED. And if I mention any of that here in front of him, he's going to have an absolute meltdown. And we don't want that to happen here, right? Can you walk out with me? Okay. Can you say bye to everyone?
Bye.
Bye, buddy.
3 has been a lot of fun. Come here. Come with me. I have to show you something. Come here.
Let's see here. Mid-America in Indiana. That's a very good program as well. Mid-America College. Uh, 44 and starting mortuary school. Steve, congratulations. Please, enjoy the journey. Sometimes it's going to seem like it's never ending, but it is worth it in the end, my friend. Mortuary school is not easy by any means, because it is so much in a very short period of time, but it is definitely worth it. It's my understanding that I can put a funeral home as a beneficiary on my life insurance to cover my funeral expenses. Barbara, it depends on the state. So one thing, I'm a licensed mortician, but I'm also a licensed life insurance agent. Certain states, like the state of Maryland, a funeral home is legally not allowed to be listed as the beneficiary. Pennsylvania, you can be listed as a beneficiary. But traditionally, this would be what they call an irrevocable assignment of the policy. Because if a funeral home could be a beneficiary of life insurance policies, imagine all the life insurance policies we could just take out on random people. So there's reasons behind why the laws are in place like that. All right. So
Bobby had asked about what's our opinion on SCI.
Oh, the 3-letter word.
So I personally don't have any issues with SCI. They own 2 cemeteries in our area. I've never had any problems. The employees there are great to work with. We have good relationships with them. So I hear of other funeral directors having issues with SCI. They don't like them, blah, blah, blah. I've never had a problem. Chris, I don't know about you, but
I've never. So I actually did a lot of my practicals at an SCI firm when I was in Nashville.
okay.
Now, what I will say is SCI is very segmented. Okay. So if you're hired to be a funeral director, that is all you are for SCI. You're a funeral director.
Mm-hmm.
They have a care center with embalmers. That's all they do. They embalm, dress, casket, cosmetize, and then the remains are sent to whatever local funeral home. Unless the funeral home is in a very remote area, then they may just hire an embalmer and a director. So, and you know what? Some directors appreciate that because it gives a different affordability to a work-life balance, things like that. So to each is their own. SCI is not as bad as some of the bigger corporations. One thing I will say, if you're asking about corporations, there was a video that came out, I want to say it was a year or 2 ago, called The Burial with Tommy Lee Jones. I forget who else what the guy's name was that was in it. But it was about the Lowen Group, and that is a very good documentary or very good movie based off of true stories about a funeral corporation and pretty much taking advantage of certain demographics of people. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely check out The Burial. But I have no opinion on SCI. I welcome him into the community because I still think we'd give better service than a corporate-owned funeral home any day of the week. Try threes and terrible twos. Been there, done that, and got the T-shirt.
Max and Sam are just totally different. Not that I want to compare by any means, but Sam was just this perfect little baby. He was potty trained by the time he was a year and a half. We ran out of diapers and just said, potty training starts today. And he never had an accident, literally never had an accident. Never wet the bed at night, nothing. And Max is on a whole other level. Yeah.
To each their own. So this looks like you got a couple different here, Catherine. This is one of the ones that you sent me. Usually 10 is the standard number, but you can order as many as you want. They charge per certificate. Can you explain who all needs one and how much do these certificate costs? So
there's really no standard amount that you need to get. Now, death certificates in the state of Pennsylvania are $20 each. If you're and I know this changed about 2 years ago, if you're a veteran or you're the spouse of a vet, you're entitled to free death certificates. Am I correct on the spouse, Chris?
No. So you get the veteran can get one free.
Is it only one now?
Yeah, a veteran can only receive one free certificate with we have to produce proof with a DD 214.
Yep.
Same thing for Maryland. You get one free certificate, but there's nothing else free.
Okay. Yeah, it used to be as many as you want because we were ordering 15, 20. So, yeah, I mean, I'll have families come in for arrangements, and right off the bat, they'll say, I need 10 death certificates. And in my mind, I think it's going to be $200. That's a lot of money just to be sitting around if you don't use all of them. So then I come back and I'll say, can you tell me what you need them for? And let's talk about this, because a lot of places will take copies of death certificates. A lot of banks will. And if you have 5 bank accounts with the same banking institution, you only need 1 death certificate. If you have 3 different bank accounts with 3 different banking institutions, are they going to take copies? I don't know. Every bank seems to be different, but most will take copies. Life insurance companies are going to want an original certified copy, brokerage accounts, retirement accounts, all of that good stuff. You're going to need death certificates for all that.
And, since 2020, since COVID, there has been a lot of laxed with requesting certified copies. People accept scanned copies now, photo copies, things like that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, I have those here.
Do you have that one? Okay.
Yeah. So Jamie says, I have a question. I've always wondered, and with losing my mom last year, I really just need to know there's still going to be funeral services when I get of age, like 80s or 90s, in hopes I live that long. And they're looking into buying spots right next to my mom for me and my husband. I feel like a lot of people in their 30s feel this way and worry. So she's just wanting to know if there are going to be funeral directors and funeral services and tradition years and years down the road. My personal opinion is, as long as we can continue educating and talking about it, yes, there will be.
Oh,
I think we're still going to see more cremation, though. But even with cremation, you can still be embalmed and have a viewing before being cremated. And I don't think a lot of people know that.
And I explain that to people in a certain way that, when people are like, oh, we're going to have a cremation. And I always explain to folks, I'm like, okay, that's the form of disposition.
Mm-hmm.
Doing anything before that. Cremation is not the service.
Right.
That's where we're getting to. The question is how we're going to get through. Now, I think I misunderstood the question. So somebody said in the comments here, MPA, we're ordering 10 free for a veteran and the same for spouse.
See, last time I tried I'm thinking there was a time I had tried to order 10 after it changed. I think all this changed back in like October of 24.
Yeah, because I know I can
Maybe.
request. I know I've only requested one for a veteran, and then the rest were paid for.
Maybe I had requested 15 because I would usually request 15 and they only gave me 10. I don't remember. I have not been doing a ton of funeral directing the last 9 months just because my focus has been on this new location. But I'm eager to get back to it. Can't wait. So there were still a couple questions on this.
Yeah.
One. She says everyone is going towards natural burials and laws are changing every day. I kind of feel like we are easy disposal. They're trying to do more economic. Green burial is still going to cost money. I think that there's maybe a misconception with that. I officially have green burial on our GPL up at Wagner-Elfner and Berg Funeral Home because I had my first green burial. It was probably about 9 months ago. And that was a really interesting process. Do you have it on your GPL down there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And this person was buried on their private property. But of course, we did all of our due diligence beforehand, looking into the zoning ordinances, crossed our T's, dotted our I's, spoke to our attorney. But the individual was placed on hospice and they wanted full control over what happened to them when they died, which I thought was very admirable. And the first question they asked on the phone was, do you do green burial? And I said, I've never done it, but let's talk. What do you want? So that was my first green burial. And that person was a remarkable person. I really enjoyed getting to know them during the time that they planned their funeral service. So
I think wasn't that one that I think you gave me a heads up on because I was covering phones for you guys while you guys were on like a cruise.
Yeah. Yeah.
She thought she was going to pass away soon, but wasn't it almost a year later?
Yes. Yeah. She was a remarkable lady. Just amazing family. And that's one thing I love about funeral service is you get to know families and individuals that are pre-planning. And, you know, we have people that come into us that are sick and they have been given 3 months to live and they want to take the reins with their funeral services. And you just have an opportunity to get to learn about people and their families and really create just a genuine connection. I've made a lot of friends through funeral service. Obviously. Hi, Chris.
What does it mean? What does it mean you raise the artery?
You answer that.
So after you make your incision, you're going to take instruments, tools, instruments, things like, and you're going to clear the fascia, which is layers of ligament and tissue, to expose the carotid sheath. Okay. Once you've opened the carotid sheath, the jugular and the carotid artery are right there. They're more medial to the midline of the neck. And what we mean by raising that is we will take a piece of ligature and we'll take our forceps and we'll put a piece of ligature under. We'll tie the ligature, and that way we can separate the jugular vein from the artery so that we can drain and then we can inject. So when we raise, we're literally opening the sheath and raising the artery up so we can incise the artery, insert the cannula into the artery, and then some folks will tie with the ligature to keep the cannula in. I personally use a clamp to clamp the cannula into the artery to inject. So when we say we raise the artery, we're really raising the artery to the surface to be able to embalm, to inject the decedent. And it's so crazy. We sit like when we're like raising the artery, you know, it's normal everyday talk to us, and you know, it's interesting when people are like, "Hey, what? Hold on, what do you mean by that?"
Right.
Oh, how come my father-in-law had a huge neck when he was in the casket? So Embalming, one thing I learned very early on, to be a good embalmer and to be a thorough embalmer, low and slow. If you were injecting, so when we say when you're injecting, that's you've turned on your embalming machine and you're forcing fluid into the arterial system. If you do that too quickly, you can cause swelling. Same thing, which a lot of people don't understand, and we have to do that video I was telling you about. I think this would answer so many questions. But as you're injecting the decedent, when you're going in through the right carotid artery, you will inject the entire body up the left side of the head. The right side of the head might get a little crossover, but not much. So once you're done injecting, you remove the cannula, you turn it, and you have to place it in the carotid going up the head, going so that you can inject going up the head. You'll turn your machine all the way down. Make sure your machine is on mix. Don't even play. Make sure it is all the way down. And then you turn your machine on to pulse. And then you'll slowly raise your rate of flow or your pressure, because you want to keep your pressure low so that you don't over inject or you don't inject too quickly and cause. That's where sometimes you'll see somebody might have a really swollen eye. And then to reduce that, someone may look very wrinkly and things like, because I don't know many people that use electric spatulas anymore. But I'm going to assume that is why there was a swollen neck in the casket. It's because it was too much pressure too quickly.
There's one comment I want to touch on. It was around 7:26, and it's from Becky. And she says, my hubby died by suicide, and the funeral home recommended no viewing because of gunshot wound to the head. And one thing I wanted to touch on, and this is going to come out in one of our videos, I think it might be in March or April, depending on the type of firearm and ammunition, really depends on whether or not we can do reconstruction, I guess. I've had several individuals use a smaller handgun. Yeah. And we've been able to cover up the entry and exit wound, and they were males. We were able to use a baseball cap, or you can use a bandana. But I would assume that funeral home was guiding you appropriately, depending on the trauma.
Yeah.
But I'm really sorry, Becky. That breaks my heart.
Here's another thing too. It's restorative art is a lost art. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
But, and here's what I don't think people understand, that even though I may not possess the skill, you may, or we may know somebody that does, that we can pick up the phone. And if people do want that one last time to say goodbye, that opportunity is there. But understand that that's calling in like a Vernie Fountain, who's out in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, to where he would travel in, and we're talking about this is something like that, like a full restoration is a multi-day process. There are fees that are associated with it, but it is doable. But I don't think people present those options to families all the time, just because they're just like, well, they're never going to pay for it. But you know what? It's not our choice. It's not our place to make that choice for the family. It's our place to present that option and them to make an informed decision on what they want to do.
And again, I think this is why education is so important, because people automatically assume that, there's trauma and we can't view. But that's not always the case. We've had many individuals in our care where we've been able to do reconstructive work, and families were able to have viewings.
Oh, absolutely. And, again, and it's being honest and transparent with the family and explaining, a lot of times with that type of trauma, you're going to have a lot of swelling of the eye sockets. Yeah. And it's telling them, what they're going to expect. Because I tell people all the time, we're morticians. but we're not magicians. It's a trocar and not a magic wand. There's
I say that we perform magic back in the prep room.
You can to an extent we do, but we're limited on what we can do.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we almost are done with all the questions. You did yours. How are you going to handle the transition from the current funeral home to your new funeral home with the possibility of people wanting to be at the old funeral home because of a loved one that was in the old funeral home?
Mike, I can guarantee you, once our new location is open, no one is going to ask to have, no one's going to ask to have a viewing at the old location or a funeral service. Gosh, I wish I just could invite all you guys to the funeral home to show you what we're working with right now. We are so limited on parking. We're on a very steep hill, and with snow and older individuals in wheelchairs, people who use walkers, canes, it's challenging. We don't have handicap parking. Our facility is very dated. We have a men's bathroom and a women's bathroom, and we have larger services, and we can't, accommodate in the chapel. We're having to put chairs out in the vestibule area, the lobby. As far as the transition though, once we get approval from the state board, we're going to start operating out of our new location. We are just chomping at the bit right now to get in there. So.
Do you have to be embalmed to be transported from state to another state? Well, I go to Maryland all the time and bring unembalmed people across the line to embalm them and perform services in Delta. So no, there are some requirements for airlines and things along of that nature, but you do not have to be embalmed to go across state lines. Here you go, Catherine. Can you put mascara on a lady? I never go anywhere unless I have my mascara on.
Yes, we can. We will put lashes on. We will put eyeshadow on. We'll do whatever the family requests. And those are usually questions that we ask during arrangements. I'll ask about makeup, nails. Of course, we usually, at least for me, I take a thorough look over the individual before I meet with the family for arrangements. And if I see that there's some chipped red nail polish, I'll say, are you okay if I remove the nail polish and give them a fresh manicure? I've had families flat out say, Mom, caked makeup on, cake makeup on. They give us direction. We ask questions. But yeah, we'll do whatever you want.
Just my favorite is when we ask to bring in a picture, you bring in like the 1991 glamour shot.
Yeah, don't do that. The prom picture.
Actually, yeah, I think we just answered that for you. I'm buying fake lashes to have glued on. I love Catherine's lashes.
Marlene, I appreciate that, but I actually went for an appointment last Friday, and I went for a fresh set. And when she took off the old ones, I said, you know what? Don't put them on. I'm done. Too high maintenance.
Here's a good one. Is the reconstruction art not taught in mortuary school? It is. Mortuary or reconstructive art is an entire class. But it is far more extensive than what you're taught. And I know my semesters were 5 weeks, 6 weeks long, and restorative art is truly a skill. Most folks that practice restorative art, that is all they strictly do. What was the lady, was it Amanda?
Yes, from Frigid.
That's one of the things she travels and does restoration for funeral homes. And it's a multi-day process. It takes a very special person. Like, there's certain things we can do on our level, but I would not feel comfortable doing a full head restoration from start to finish. I just personally wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Jeff Turner, can we get a tour?
I actually just replied to her in the comments.
Okay.
We will have open houses and we will do online tours. Definitely.
Well, my father passed almost 3 years ago from Alzheimer's. He was on hospice for the last 2 weeks and he had lost a lot of weight. When we went for his wake, he looked younger and he didn't look so skinny. I was so happy he looked like himself again. And that is one of the best things about embalming. You get the opportunity to get that one last chance to say goodbye. And again, an embalmer that does a thorough case analysis knows whether to use a humectant, whether to use a surfactant, and how to bring that person back. But all right, so we are going on 2 hours.
We actually do have a couple more questions. I don't know if you want to pull this one up again.
Okay. Let's see. Is that how I got into funerals?
Yeah. Okay. So I get this question a lot, and people will say, how did you get into funeral service? And I want to hear your story then too, Chris.
Mhm.
Around the age of 13 is when I started showing an interest in death care and becoming a funeral director. And I journaled all the time throughout middle school and high school. But my great grandmother died when I was 13 years old. And I remembered that I kept some flowers from her casket spray in my journal. So for the first time, and I swear, the first time ever, I went down into the basement and I opened this up tonight because I thought, I know I was asked the question and I want to talk to you a little bit about this. So I actually journaled what had happened during her funeral service.
Oh, wow.
And these, what?
I said that I said, oh, wow.
Yeah. So these are the rose petals that I kept. And it says 2 rose petals from Mammal's funeral on Monday, January 29th, 2001. And I journaled here. I got to see her in her casket and I held her hand. Her body was cold, but the casket looked like it would keep her warm. And before the casket was closed, Mommy, my mom, Diane, who's my aunt, and my Nana, we've shown Nana on social media, they hugged her and kissed her, but I didn't. I felt weird. She looked beautiful laying there. So I have a feeling this was around the time that I started showing a serious interest in funeral service. And then I worked for a family business for 12 years, and working for family can be challenging. You feel guilt when you want to leave. And so my father ended up selling his company, and I thought, this is my out. I'm getting out. And I put my 2 weeks in that night and never looked back.
Because this was a second career for you, right?
Yeah.
And how old was Sam when you started school?
I went back to school when I was 30 because I had to finish up my 60, my 60 credits that I needed to get into PIMS. So I did that through Southern New Hampshire University and went to PIMS. Yep.
I mean, for me, so one thing about my family is my family was very big on, if there was a funeral, they brought the kids to the funeral.
Yep.
So I remember going to funerals 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And I remember us running through the funeral home. If the door was unlocked, I was going in it, type of kid. And I was just always interested in funeral service. But what sealed the fate for me is that when I was 11, my dad died. And my mom and my dad were divorced, and my dad died from a heroin overdose. And I was supposed to be with my dad that day. And I ended up going with my mom and my stepdad on a church trip. And I was like, oh, no, Dad, I want to go do this. I'll come over to your house after I'm done. We got home late, and my mom's like, go take a shower. So go take a shower. And also I hear glass break. Get out of the shower, come down, and my mom's like, I love you. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And she's like, your dad OD'd. And I said, was he okay? Because, you can come back, and she said no. And I'll never forget, it was me and I have a half brother, his name's Paul, went the next morning to Lillian and Zyler Funeral Home down in Highlandtown in Baltimore. It was an old row home funeral home. And I'll remember going in, I remember the funeral director. His name was Andrew Dowell. So that shows the impression that made on me, that I still remember his name. We're in the arrangements conference, and my brother is sitting there, and the director's asking. I mean, all my aunts and uncles were there. It was a total circus. And finally, Andrew just looks at me, and I'm 11 years old, and he goes, "Hey, this is your dad. You have a say in what goes on here. What do you want?" And from that moment on, and I mean, back then, this was back when we had 2 days of viewings from. It was 3 to 5 and 7 to 9 both days, and on the third day we had the funeral. And I remember during the visitation, the coffee machine was outside, the coffee pot or whatever was outside of Andrew's office, and I would just, I'm the cool 11-year-old drinking coffee and getting all hopped up, and I remember just talking to him, and talk to him about being a funeral director and funeral service, and I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, I'll never forget. Even at the cemetery, I asked him, I said, "Can I stay with you? Because I want to stay while my dad gets put into the grave." He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." And I stayed there until the vault lid was set. And if I can make an impact on just one person, the way that man made an impact on me and made sure that I felt heard, that's what I want to do the rest of my life. And
Is he still living?
Andrew, he still owns the funeral home. He's just like me at Harkins. He's a one-man show. Not a very big call volume, but yeah, he still has the funeral home. He's still down there in Baltimore City.
Did you ever tell him the impact he had on you?
I think I ran into him once, and we talked briefly at the health department, but I've never actually had the opportunity to go find him and sit down and be like, "Hey, you're the reason why I'm here doing what I'm doing today."
Sure. I didn't know that about your dad. I'm sorry. How old was he?
Let's see. I think early 50s.
Okay.
Dad was young.
And you were 11.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was, and again, it was just one of those things. And it was a traditional burial. I now know that he had been autopsied and things like that. And I'll never forget, because we came in one time it was the first day of viewings on the second half. And when I was up at the casket, the pillow was wicking from the cranial sutures, and Andrew took care of it. And that's where it was my first experience with dry wash.
Okay.
So
dry wash solves every problem known to man.
and then speaking of tattoos, so my dad had tattoos on both of his hands, on his knuckles.
Yeah.
He had love on his left knuckles and hate on his right knuckles. And they put love over top of hate when he was in the casket. I'll never forget that too. And again, the little details, the color of the color on someone's fingernails, that, I've had families come into me before and they're like, "Oh my God, you put a color, you painted her nails."
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we go that distance, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just little things, little details that you don't think people are going to look at or notice, that they truly do.
Absolutely.
So.
Well,
Let's see here.
Barb and Steve both said that you need to find him and tell him that.
That's what a lot of people are saying. I may actually have to reach out to him. I should. But
Laura says, what would cause the lower left torso to sink in after embalming to where a thick pad would have to be placed around the lower left side. Thank you for your response.
Are you thinking? So I know that when you aspirate someone,
Yeah.
they can become very, and I always get these two convexed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the abdomen will go down significantly because you've aspirated everything that would be in that cavity. Now, I've never used a thick pad. I've used batting cotton
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to pad and fill someone out, but I don't know about a pad.
Yeah. There are times where individuals come to us who are retaining a lot of fluid, and you go in to aspirate. And this actually happened to me the other day. I'm aspirating and I'm just watching their stomach just slowly go down because we're moving contents from the abdominal cavity.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a big difference. So yeah, I've used cotton before, but whatever we need to do to make someone look as natural as possible.
I know somebody, it was probably farther back in the comments, had asked about the sawdust you use for embalming.
It absorbs liquid fluids, so that's what we will sprinkle in the cavity when we are embalming someone who has had an autopsy, or maybe even someone who was an organ donor. It will absorb body fluids, and it has like a nice smell to it. At least the frigid one that I use kind of has like a menthol-y smell. Oh, things are not going well upstairs. I don't know if you can hear it, but Max is not having it tonight.
Well, guys, like I said, it's been 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think this was a great success. I think we should do it again.
I think so too.
I know we and you talked about an idea
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the day for maybe the next one.
Yeah.
I think that would definitely be worth maybe a conversation. And then, guys, just stay tuned. Make sure, number one, that you are voting for Wagner-Elfner and Harkins as best of York County.
No.
How do I mute you?
You better find a new job if you win.
And second of all, make sure you go to the Wagner-Elfner and Berg Facebook page, like and follow. Go to Wagner-Elfner and Harkins Facebook page, like and follow, so you guys can stay up to date for when we do these lives and participate with us, because this was an absolute blast. I mean, we have not dropped below 109 followers the entire night.
That's great.
And I mean,
This
for
was
2
awesome.
hours. So please go give the Facebook, especially, like I said, Harkins, go give Harkins Facebook some love. You know, we've got to jump that following up. And then go, if you haven't followed Katharine's Facebook on Wagner-Elfner and Berg, follow her. And then, again, keep sending in the comments. If it's comments that you really want us to answer thoroughly in depth like this, please send them to us via messenger or email, because if they get put into a comment thread on one of the posts, sometimes they get lost because it's hard to go back and actually see every single one of them.
And sometimes Facebook hides comments too. I've noticed that a lot lately.
Yes. So it only show you what they deem as the most relevant in their algorithm or something like that. So again, this was a blast. Katharine, thanks for doing it.
Yeah, this was great. Just out of curiosity, if you are from York County, can you give us a thumbs up? I'd love to know if anyone from the area is watching tonight. I've seen a couple names I recognize.
There was a lot of people at the beginning of the comments that we'll have to go back through and look that were saying where they were from. And I mean, it was Missouri. There's people from York,
all over.
Colorado, Arkansas, Indiana.
There's TJ. TJ's the one that did all the tile work down at the funeral home. If you ever need tile work done in York County, you're in York County, TJ's your man. He's awesome. There's Whitney. So Whitney is the wife of Pastor Josh, and Pastor Josh and Whitney live at Chapel Church, which is right next to where we're building. We love our Chapel Church family.
Again, Whitney Wargo. Oh, and that is that the pastor from Chapel Church?
Yeah. Pastor
Okay.
John.
So we got Courtney, Whitney.
Oh, cool. Denise says her hubby works for Stewart and Tate. You guys, Stewart and Tate, hands down, best company we could have picked to build this funeral home. This funeral home is going to be amazing once we're in. I can't wait to show you.
So yeah, I mean that
Cool.
it's definitely from all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
All right, guys. Well, everybody have a good night. You go save Nate, and I'll talk to you soon, and we will talk to all of you in Facebook and on the social medias very soon. Have a wonderful evening, guys, and thanks for joining in.
See ya. Have a good night.
Bye.